Hello and welcome to Circle Time, the Early Years podcast with me, Glenn Denny. And I'm delighted to have joining me today Rebecca Askew, who is a baby and child sleep therapist
Consultant therapist.
consultant and therapist. Yes, I knew I'd get that wrong. Um, Basically, you are the person that kind of you consult with people about sleep and educate people on sleep for babies and children, isn't it?
Yeah, so I work with families on a one-to-one basis. Most of my work is remote. Sometimes I go and spend some time with the families, but most of the time it's remote. And then I also run a training course to teach others to become baby and child sleep consultants or therapists, whatever they want to call themselves.
Mhm. So let's talk a bit about that then. So there's sleep therapy. What is that?
Okay, well, there's sort of two approaches to sleep therapy. There's the
Mhm.
holistic approach, which is great, the massage, the calm environment, but also where I come from, because I'm a psychologist as well, from a science point of view, there are actual windows where it is the best time, optimum time for us all to learn to sleep and to be able to sleep well. So what happens a lot of the time is that's missed, those windows are missed,
Mhm.
and so I educate parents on how to find those nap windows. I tend to write a plan for them with age appropriate nap times, or if they're not napping, bedtimes, that kind of thing. But also independent sleep is so important, and that's what I do a lot of my time. I'm teaching parents how to teach their children or their babies to sleep independently.
Yeah, I mean, it was when you said independent sleep, that's what came into my head straight away because, as a practitioner, I hear a lot from parents like, so and so was in, came through into my bed again through the night, and it's like, mm-hmm. So it's is it quite a prolific, not prolific as such, but is it kind of like more common than we think, this kind of children not sleeping independently?
Yeah, it's about 20%.
Wow.
And over the course of their childhood, that goes up significantly. So it could be that just a period of, in time, they've gone through something new or traumatic. So they then have what we call a parasomnia, which is a sleep issue.
Mhm,
And that could be anything from night terrors, nightmares, sleepwalking, to more medical things.
mhm.
Um, so I think it raises up to sort of around the 60%, 60-70% of children at some stage. And like I said, that could be minor, it could just be a small period that they're going through. And then the children that I tend to deal with are the ones that have never learned to sleep independently. So they've always been rocked to sleep, fed to sleep, had the parents laying with them, co-sleeping, that kind of thing,
Mhm,
which is all lovely if that works okay for the family. But actually, parents come to me when they're on their knees and they're
mhm,
exhausted. Because if a child's not sleeping independently, when they have their natural sleep cycle throughout the night, which is it's sort of about every 2 hours, um, they'll go into, so a sleep cycle is where we go into a light sleep, then
mhm,
we go into a deep sleep, and then we go into a light sleep again. We wake very briefly, and if you've got a partner in bed, you might notice them change positions or a sigh or something like that. Um, and you go into, most of the time, unless as an adult you're worried about something or you don't sleep well, you'll just go straight into the next sleep cycle.
mhm,
With children, when they come to the light sleep phase and they wake briefly, if they haven't learnt to go to sleep independently, they want whatever it is that they've learnt to go to sleep with. So being cuddled, rocked, parent there, co-sleeping, that's what they want. So that's where you get the continual wake ups through the night. So
mhm.
when parents come to me, as I was saying, when they're on their knees, I also think about it from the child's point of view. If you're on your knees how are they?
Yeah.
How are they coping with that?
No, there's that thing as well that, in nurseries, we see children, albeit maybe temporarily, they've had a bad night's sleep. But even just that one temporary blip of a bad night's sleep will set them off on a really bad trajectory all day
Yeah.
long, where they just crash at some point, and I suppose, long term as well, for the child and the parent, that must be absolutely soul destroying.
And it makes them a lot of the time the parents are saying to me, I'm a bad parent because I am so tired. I don't want to go out to the park. I don't want to sit and colour. I don't want to do this because I am exhausted. I'm not saying they are bad parents, they're just exhausted parents, but that's how they feel.
Yeah, I was going
Um,
to say that's their feeling, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And also obviously I'm an avid researcher, so I read research the whole time, sort of proper academic research.
Mhm.
And I recently read an article about children that are sleep deprived. By the time they get to school, how developmentally they are behind. By the time they get to 5 or 6, if they aren't sleeping well and getting enough sleep and consolidated sleep, then by the time they're 5 or 6, they will developmentally be behind at school, and they're more likely to have behavioural issues.
Mhm.
Anything from sort of biting, hitting, verbally, bad behavior. It's all intertwined, and a lot of the time, these youngsters, and you probably know this in nursery, when they're tired, they're not eating well either.
No, no. I mean, prime example of that actually was yesterday. I had one of the children in my room. Obviously, I'm not using names in that, but one of the children, she wasn't eating very well, and she was just so lethargic, and she'd had. Now, it was another temporary blip for them, but it had recently been her birthday. There was a big birthday weekend, lots going, all the excitement, and that was still obviously coursing through her veins, all this excitement and adrenaline and everything. And it was just, I sent mum a message because normally she has an hour sleep limit at nursery, which normally works fine for her. But on this occasion, I said to mum, look, can I please give her a bit more? And honestly, that did her so much good,
Mm.
having that little bit extra, that she woke up and she was actually a bit more lively and ate a little bit more at tea time. But it's just amazing how, you know, events and things can have that effect.
And I think that a lot of children that I work with, the parents question whether there is something wrong with their child, as in, could they be on the autistic spectrum? Could they be suffering from ADHD? That kind of thing,
Mhm.
because those are the outward behaviors that they exhibit,
Yeah.
short attention span, being disruptive, and some are, some will go through and have that diagnosis, but others, it is literally lack of sleep that is causing all of these problems, and it's horrific. I was working with a family, and I know that the family don't mind me talking about this because we have
Mhm.
talked on it when we did an Instagram live. So the mum has got 3 daughters, and so she's an experienced mum. The
Mhm.
youngest one is horrific. She is worried that she is on the spectrum. She's biting, she's kicking, she's throwing things, um, massive tantrums, will not sleep, but sort of hyperactive
Mhm.
all the time. So mum, we were starting to work together, and mum messaged me in the day, and she just was in floods of tears because this little girl, who was 2.5, she'd put her in her car seat, and she'd got and put the other 2 girls in the car seat. They were older children, they were in the
Yeah.
car. She went round to the driver's side, and the child got out of the car, and they live on a main road, and she went under the car and would not come out from under the car. And the mum was saying, I've got to go shoe shopping because term starts in 2 weeks, however not many weeks it was just some holidays. My neighbours have come out and I can see them tutting at me. I honestly don't think you can help me. And I looked at everything, because as sleep consultants you should. We looked at her diet, and there was too much sugar in there as well. So we cut out all sugar completely. And actually, to be fair, I never ever put a reward system in with a child that's sweet, but we needed something with this child, and so we'd taken out all the sweets apart from small gold coins that she was rewarded with, chocolate coins. And the difference, this child, when she was getting sleep, she was just a completely different child. So there weren't the behavior issues. She obviously, like I say, she wasn't on having as much sugar, but the sleep and the change in diet just made her an all-round really lovely child. Behavior wise, it improved significantly. There were still things that mum had to do. She still had to learn how to manage when she knew that she was going to have a meltdown. But yeah, overall the difference was, and when I did the Instagram live with this mum, she said, I'm ashamed to say that I didn't like her. I didn't like my own child. And that's horrible, isn't it?
It is, but you kind of like, I'm not saying like the way she felt. I can completely understand why she said that, because I think you get so lost in it. And we live in a society now where there's a lot of external pressures coming onto us from social media, and even just like you said there, her neighbors just watching. You just feel so much pressure, and you just think, I can't cope, I can't do this, and everybody's watching, and I'm just useless. And that just makes the situation worse as well.
Yeah, and I think the violence that this little girl was exhibiting to her sisters and to her mum. I don't actually know if she was like that with dad. I think she might have been, but it was mostly towards her mum and her sisters, because they spent most of the time with her.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, the things that she would it would just make your hair curl for the things that she did. And that was all linked to sleep and sugar.
So, you're talking about how she came to you and literally said, I don't think you can solve. Do you think a lot of parents think the same thing? It's like, do they fully understand what a sleep consultant does? Do they understand that actually this is something that is available and I can tap into and get help?
I think a lot of my clients are recommended, so they can see a friend, a relative's child, the difference in them. I get a lot of my clients as well from Instagram, so I put a lot of things on there. The ones that aren't recommended tend to cut, well, all of them, to be fair. Nearly every single parent that I do a sort of a discovery call with right at the beginning will say, I don't think you're better to fix ours. I mean, I know you're good. I've heard your reputation. I've read your reviews. I know you're good, but honestly, I think I'm not convinced. I did a discovery call today with a parent of a 3-year-old and a 15-month-old. And she was saying to me, I was saying, okay, so what we can do is, obviously I go into a lot of questions to make sure there isn't anything medical that could be stopping them from sleeping. And I said, so yeah, at that age, we can definitely be getting them to go to sleep at about 6:30, 7 at night, and then hopefully see them no earlier than 6 o'clock in the morning. And mum said to me straight away, I don't think that can be done. She said, last night I put them to bed at 7 and I was still going into them at 1 in the morning.
It's that bit that kind of makes me like, do you think, like, right, throw this out slightly. Do you think parents should be going in as much, or is it down to each individual child? But it's that bit where, as a parent, do you feel that you should be going in and checking in on them if they're crying or whatever through the night, or do you think that could have a negative effect on it?
It definitely does have a negative effect, but I wouldn't say don't go into them in the night. It's literally every individual case. So sometimes when we're sleep training, I know that child needs the parent in the room, and that will help them being in the room. And then we gradually take that support away, very, very gradually. Because a lot of people think, oh, sleep consultant, it's cried out, the door's shut, baby cries, and that's it. I don't personally practice that. I know other consultants that do, and it's a very effective method. It's something I don't do. But then there's other children, and I get them to send me like little videos on WhatsApp from the camera monitor of somebody in the room, you know, either the mum, the dad, or the mums or the dads, whatever. And I assess whether I feel the parent's presence in the room is making it worse. And then I'll probably say, will you come out the room? And like I say, some babies and children need that support in the room. You can't straight away say, right, you've got to leave the room. It needs to be very gradual. And others actually being in the room is making them far, far worse.
It's almost
And
like,
sorry.
no, no, no. I was going to say it's almost like, you know, with like, because I work with 2-year-olds, and sometimes it's that bit where they're crying and wanting something, but actually it's just they want the attention rather than they actually have a need, other
Yeah.
than they just want your constant attention. And it I suppose it's that kind of fine balance, isn't it? And that's where you come in and you can assess that.
Yeah, definitely. And I always say to parents, because lots of parents worry that the attachment with their child will lessen or be harmed by the fact that they are leaving their child to cry for very short periods of time, or not co-sleeping, or not attending to their child as soon as they call or instantaneously. And actually, I find I've sleep trained hundreds of babies and children, hundreds. And it's the opposite, the absolute opposite, because the best part of my job is when I know a child is going to sleep independently, they're happy and they feel safe. They're well rested, so the attachment will be there. So I'll always encourage parents as much time with them in the day, lots of cuddles, lots of kisses, lots of attention during the day. And then at night time, it's for sleeping. It's not for attention. And a lot of children that have never learned to sleep independently panic. So when I talk to parents, I'll say to them, so imagine that you have gone to sleep in your bed and you wake up on the kitchen floor. Would you instantly be able to go into another sleep cycle, or would you be panicked? How did I get here? What's happened? Where's my bed? This is what happens with children that are supported to sleep. They wake up, they panic, they're scared because they went to sleep in their parents' arms, or with the parent there with them, or they were being fed, or they were being rocked. All those things. I mean, some driven round. You know, I've worked with parents that only way they can get them to sleep is to drive them round. And then they wake up in a different situation and they panic. And from my point of view, it is so lovely when I see on a little camera monitor when the parents video them going to sleep independently, and they're sort of wriggling around a bit and finding a comfortable position, and their eyes are fluttering, and they go off to sleep, and you just think they feel safe. They feel safe doing this. And that's just the best part of my job, I think.
So I know for me, it that so with my room, I have a sleep time just after lunch, and I mean it is the best time because everything's peaceful and calm through our busy morning, you know, and everything's kind of come to. But also, it's when they start to wake up, they're just fresh again, and they're ready to play, and they're ready for that challenge, and you know it shows how important. Okay, some of them are now, because they're at that kind of awkward age where they're starting to grow out of that daytime sleep, Although some of our older ones in the preschool room still need a sleep. But again, it's like we were talking about, individual children have individual needs.
Yeah.
But you know, when the majority of my children sleep, and then it's just fantastic that they've had that rest, however long they need, whether they have a limit from their parent or whether they can have as long as they like. Everyone's still usually up by about 3 o'clock, and you know they're just ready to play. And you know, it shows how important that sleep is for a small child.
Yeah. And if they're not having, if they don't have, the problem is you find if they don't nap during the day, so they're not getting enough daytime sleep, that really affects nighttime sleep. And it makes nighttime sleep worse, and it makes bedtime sleep. I worked once with a 10-month-old, and the mum sent me a little video before we started of this 10-month-old crawling around the room at 10 o'clock at night. And she said to me, I just don't think she needs the same amount as other babies. But what had happened was when children, well, all of us are sleep deprived, our bodies automatically release adrenaline and cortisol to keep us going. And it's supposed to date back from our hunter-gatherer days when we needed to be on high alert.
Yeah.
So if we weren't sleeping, we needed to be on high alert. So it would give us this sort of release. And it's almost like drinking, for us adults, having a sort of a can of Red Bull, and then half an hour later expected to fall asleep. You can't
do it. Yeah.
And if you've missed that good sleep window, then that's what happens. And then you think, well, my child doesn't need to sleep at this time, they don't need that. So parents tend to keep them up later to wear them out. And then you're just adding to that adrenaline and cortisol.
Yeah.
You're going to have a dreadful night.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Again, it's ringing true to kind of my past experience with some children. It's like, well, they weren't asleep till such and such time. And so I'm going to ask the question is, so occasionally I get some parents saying, well, they're not really sleeping very well at night. I think we'll drop their sleep during the day. Should I be trying to talk? Oh, your face just said it all. Should I really be trying to talk to them and say, maybe not such a good idea, maybe reduce it,
yes,
but try and keep it, because it will, yeah, it's one of these awkward ones. It's whether we have that conversation with parents about it.
Yeah. I think this is where it's great to be an expert in sleep as well, if you work in a nursery, because when they get to about 2, and you'll know this, Glenn, because everything when you get to 2 is the most fascinating thing in the world. The tiniest piece of fluff, a little speck on something, something new in the room, everything is amazing. So what you're trying to get these children to then do is, again, the analogy I give is being at the best party as an adult, and you're having such a fabulous time, and there's music and there's dancing and there's food, and someone says, right, you got to go. Literally, you got to go, you got to get, and you got to go to bed. It'd be like, what I'm having, and that is exactly what it is like around the age of 2. And the least thing they want to do is to sleep. And the first thing they tend to do is resist that lunchtime nap. Purely not through a lack of a sleep need, purely through a massive fear of missing out. It's just too much fun. Sleep is boring.
It's funny you say that, like fear of missing out. I honestly say that to some of my colleagues. It's like when we've got a child that we know still needs to sleep, and they're literally doing that. They're looking around and their head's practically going 360 degrees to watch anything and everything. And I've literally turned around to colleagues and gone, they've got FOMO, that fear of missing out. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I was smiling and sort of giggling to myself when you say, like, that smallest bit of dust, that little something that was dropped on the carpet, earlier in the day. It's the most fascinating thing. So one thing I could ask, like, we talked about parents' needs, but as practitioners, when we have kind of like sleep time within nursery, what could we do sort of around lunchtime? Is there anything we could do to kind of make that transition from eating our lunch to going to bed a little bit easier?
So especially around about the 18-month, 2-year-old, because of this FOMO, we need to dim the lights, read them a story, and lower our voices. So the story can't be exciting. And I'm sure as practitioners, you make every story exciting because you want to get them involved. You want to get them interested in reading and looking at books. So we tend to lower our voice and don't have sort of the exciting stories. And I would say read the same story twice, because rather than then alerting their brain to it, so we've gone from Little Red Riding Hood and we're now doing the Gruffalo. And so you're engaging their brain again. So I would read the same story twice, and on the second one, definitely lower your voice. So no big voice, so that they are actually sort of like even this far. So they're having to really listen to what you're saying. And a dim room, and then the ultimate sleeping environment for me is white noise and darkness. It to be more or less as dark as you can get it in that room. And that helps for two things really. So the white noise, not a lot of nurseries play white noise. You can use pink noise as well, which is a little bit less harsh, but it dulls the sounds, the external sounds of other children moving about, because it's a very boring sound. It also mimics the womb. So even some adults use white noise to sleep with. So that's another good thing about white noise. It gives them, brings back memories of being in the womb and nice and comfortable and safe. And then a dark room, because any light blocks the production of melatonin, which is our natural sleep hormone. And if we don't produce enough of that, then we won't stay asleep. So sleeping in the light is not great. And that's why they say no screen times before, especially blue light is pretty harsh. So yeah, I would definitely be doing a double story with a different tone in your voice.
Okay, I know, because at the moment what I tend to do is we go, like, we have a calm lunch, but then I bring them through to the room. We have lunch in one room, but come through to another room to sleep. But I get them to help a little bit to put their beds together. But then we don't use white noise. I use one particular piece of classical music, which is very slow, very calm, but I just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. It literally goes on until everybody's awake, and then I switch it off.
Yeah, that's
Would that
good
work as well?
Yeah. It's again, especially because if it is really calm and repeated, anything that's going to stimulate them in any way. Ultimately, white noise is better, but I know that from a practitioner's point of view, you will get some resistance from parents because they do worry about white noise. So I think from a practice point of view, having the classical on repeat and a really calming one is a second choice, and that would be good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it was really useful to know that, because obviously we know that we're there ultimately to help and support our families that come to us, and sleep is a big part of that. So it's good to know that there's extra little things that we can do to help bring about really good sleep for them. Is there sort of any kind of points of information that we can send to parents as well that would be really useful for them to kind of look up? We could, you were talking about your Instagram as well, and it seems like there's quite a lot of information on there.
There is an awful lot of information on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram. Yeah.
Brilliant. So what we could do, what we'll do is we'll link that in for our listeners as well, and then they can link through to their parents as well. So that'd be really useful.
But also, I'm always happy to answer sleep questions. I'm not one of these people that have, yes, obviously it's my job and I get paid to do my job. But I do really like to answer specific questions that parents have, because sometimes sometimes I have to say to them, this is going to need full sleep training. Or it could be that I just can say to them, oh yeah, you've just got the nap times wrong, or you've just got the sleep windows wrong, or you need to change this. And just that little snippet of advice can make a huge difference. So I'm more than happy for anybody to ask me any questions.
That's fantastic. It's one of these things as well. I think it's knowing that, or for parents, knowing that actually they're not alone on this. There's somebody out there that's got some answers, or can pinpoint answers, or can have a longer conversation with more answers and find out more for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I started this years ago, when I started because my grandson didn't sleep. None of my 4 children slept. And then when my grandson came along, I'd done my degree in psychology by then, and he was given the same, my daughter-in-law was given the same answer, oh, some babies just don't sleep. And I just knew that wasn't true by then. At that point, because it was years ago, we found a company in New Zealand, because over there in New Zealand and Australia, you know, you would have, even in a small town, you would have 2 or 3 sleep consultants. It's the norm to have somebody to help you. If your child doesn't sleep over there, it's the norm for you to get help. Over here, it's not as common. I mean, you hear about sleep consultants all the time now, but it's not as common to ask for help. And there's still that little bit of stigma attached to asking for help. But like I say, in Australia and New Zealand, there are sort of so many, and that's where I did my training with them, because there was nothing over here. So
That's
there
amazing.
is help. So get some help if you need some help. That's
definitely.
Do not suffer as a parent, and do not let the discovery call I was telling you about earlier. That parent had not had a full night's sleep for 4 years. Her or her husband could go out, but not both of them together for 4 years.
So literally for 4 years, their life was on hold, really, and just breaking apart, really, because I mean, you know what you're like if you have one night of bad sleep, but never mind 4 years. Oh my word! Well, I'm so glad that you were able to help them. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's the best job in the world. I know you think you've got the best job in the world, but mine's the best job.
Fantastic. Rebecca, thank you so much for talking to us on the podcast. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Oh, you're welcome. And don't forget, you can join us in the next couple of weeks for more from the podcast. And you just stay tuned to all our social media and on our website at circletimepodcast.co.uk.